Guys, welcome back to another great episode of Before the First Cast. I'm super excited to have a guest with us tonight. You probably see him on the screen. Um, so I'm just going to jump into it. We have Alex Rudd fishing with us tonight. Alex, how are you doing tonight?
Good, buddy. I'm good. Looking forward to this.
Good. So, for those who don't know you, my viewers and listeners that don't know you, can you kind of go and kind of give a synopsis of how you got to fishing and your family life and where you're at now?
I don't know what happened, buddy. Hold on just 1 second.
Oh, you're good. Okay, I'll pause the recording.
All right, we're good. We're back. I don't know what just happened. It just
Alright,
like it just like totally knocked out on me. I don't know what happened. We're back though.
we're back. So I'm gonna give the floor back to you.
All right.
So just kind of go where you started fishing, who got you into fishing, and where you are now.
Yeah, no, yeah, man. So, fishing for me started with my dad. I don't even remember a world where I don't fish, right? As soon as I was big up enough to walk, I was fishing and had a rod and reel in my hand, and so it's been a passion of mine for my whole entire life. And, I've done some other things and enjoyed other things in life. But, one story I always like to tell is I'll never forget I was playing baseball one day and I was standing out in the outfield and I walked over to the fence and I asked my dad, I said, Dad, they're eating a spook today on Cherokee, aren't they? And he goes, Yes, they are, son. And I was like, Can we go fishing instead of play baseball? He goes, Yeah, we can do that. And so, like, it's one of those things. I've had a lot of hobbies in life, but my one true passion has always been fishing, and been lucky enough to just be able to build the community that I built on YouTube and work hard and build it into a brand that I was able to make my job. And this is what I get to do full time is fish now. And so it's really cool, man. It's a great opportunity. It's something that I love to do. And it all started when I hooked my first smallmouth on a bobber and a cricket on the bank. And it was like that was the day I knew bass fishing was cool and something I wanted to do forever.
And you are from the Eastern Tennessee side of things,
Yes, sir.
um, not too far from us, which
Yep.
here in Virginia.
Yeah.
So I'm very familiar with your area. I have family down there.
Yeah.
Um, so you just tell us about kind of how you know the because I know starting back, your YouTube got really big. You started with some companies. How did that all start?
Yeah. No. So, it's one of those things when I started YouTube, I had no intention of ever doing it full time. I didn't even know you could make money doing it. I just really, I've always loved filming and I've always loved fishing. And back in the day, me and my buddies, if we weren't fishing or digging through a creek, we were riding dirt bikes and four wheelers. And so we were, all the time into watching like freestyle motocross and watching those old VHS tapes of them out in the desert, like doing backflips to punk rock music, right? And then like some of my biggest heroes in like the media space weren't really bass fishing guys. They were dudes like Steve Irwin. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
it's like I saw this opportunity with YouTube. I was like, I'm gonna like make these videos like, it started with the videos like, punk rock music and it was like hook sets instead of backflips on motorcycles. And so I was like, that's really cool. And we did that for a while. And then as the channel, evolved, I evolved and I kind of just wanted to share my adventures in kind of that Steve Irwin-esque type of deal, go out and explore. And that's what the videos kind of evolved into. And, for time's sake, when I was still working full time or going to college full time, we'd throw in some educational stuff here and there because, I ended up being an elementary school teacher too for 4 years before I went full time with the YouTube thing. But working with companies kind of just developed from the fact that I figured out that being on the internet and having a presence and having an audience and having people who listen to you comes with a lot of influence. And that influence is one of those things that I think a lot of people undervalue, not only in its power and what you can do with it, but just undervalue it in general. Um, the reality of the situation is the world that we live in is social media. It's streaming, it's social media, it's YouTube, and people go there to be informed. And so when I figured out that I could make a living doing this, it was like my main goal in life was to figure out whatever way it took to get where that I could pay my bills and get to go fishing for a living. That's what I was going to do. And so I, used what I knew about business and learned more about business and asked a lot of questions and really developed into the business man that I am today. And that's what I tell people all the time is I really have three passions in life. The first one is fishing. The second one is content creation and making videos, but the third is being a businessman and doing good business. And so it was one of those things. I just align myself with brands and with people who I believe in, and things that I know that I trust and I can talk about with a lot of confidence. And just got lucky enough that they're willing to pay me to do that. And that's just kind of how that developed. My first ever partnership, we'll say, was with a guy named Rick Patry who owned at the time Lucky Tackle Box. Now he
Mhm.
owns Monster Bass. And he taught me a lot about the business side of fishing, and the fishing is an industry. And it's a very big industry, especially, freshwater and saltwater fishing combined. And there's a lot of people that make a lot of money. And so, there's ability to do that. It's just being able to do good business and be a good person and be nice to everybody and know your worth and know yourself, know your worth. Drake says that. And if you know those two things, you can do a lot and you can build a brand like I've built. And it's just something that I have taken a lot of pride in, and to be able to do that and call myself a business owner and be able to say Alex for Fishing is a business as well as a passion.
Yeah, and you definitely grew it very big, which I appreciate all your videos. I watch
Appreciate
all
that.
of them.
Appreciate that.
So did you start in a bass boat or did you start somewhere else content creating in a kayak, or how did you start the content creation?
Yeah, no, I started in a bass boat. So, my dad was he was a consummate outdoorsman, and all throughout my childhood, he always had a boat, bass boat in particular. And, bass fishing was like his main thing that he liked to do. And so, I was a bass fisherman out of a bass boat. And I really didn't even realize that there was any other fish that lived in the lake. I thought bass was like the only thing was the most important thing, and those viewpoints have changed obviously over the years, but it all started in the bass boat. And that was kind of where I fish from. And, and still even to this day, it really is probably 40 to 50% of what I do on my channel is fish out of a bass boat, because that's what I know and what I'm comfortable with and where I really cut my teeth in bass fishing. But then the whole kayak thing started probably 8, 9 years ago now. And Chad Hoover and Gene Jensen, a couple buddies of mine, at that time, it was more like, holy cow, this is Gene Jensen versus, oh God, it's Gene again. But they reached out and they were like, hey, we'd love to get you in a kayak and we would love to, for you to do that. And I'm like, sure. And so, first kayak that I ever got was a bona fide SS 127, and it was just a paddle kayak. And from there, it just kind of fell in love with kayak fishing. This the ability to take that kayak places that you can't take a boat, drop it in little creeks, drop it in little streams, go on these adventures that me and my buddy John Dalton go on, and just get to places that are untouched and often not, very heavily pressured with fishing pressure, and just do exactly what I just said a minute ago, which was explore and to have fun and go on an adventure and do like Steve Irwin used to do. You know what I mean? And be able to make those videos. And so, yeah, man, it started in the bass boat, and now my channel's split. It's probably
Mhm.
60% kayak and 40% boat, just because of all the cool places that the kayak's taken me. And so I really love kayak fishing because of that, just because it does itch that little scratch that little itch that I have, which is that adventure and explore and go do something not very many people are willing or want to do.
Right. So, say you have a novice kayak angler like myself that's
Mhm.
just trying to get into it. What's some tips or tricks you would give that angler, you know, that's
Yeah.
just now jumping into it?
Yeah, I think the biggest tip that I can give anybody is just go get in the kayak. And there's a lot of great opportunities to do that. Especially where you're at here in East Tennessee. All throughout the country, really, kayak fishing is taking off, and there's a lot of great kayak shops,
Mhm.
that have like on the water days. Dugout Bait and Tackle does one, and they actually have a pond out back where you can test any of the kayaks that you want to. But it just allows you to get on that kayak and really see what you're getting yourself into, because a lot of people, they go out to Walmart and they buy a lifetime kayak and they go throw it in the water, and normally end up having a bad experience, and it kind of, scares them off of being in a kayak. And when in the reality of the situation is these modern day kayaks, even very affordable boats all the way up to the big fancy expensive boats, they're designed for kayak fishing. You're not just fishing in a kayak, and there's a very different thing between those two statements. And so just being able to get out in one of those kayaks and to paddle around and just to experience and be on the water in that kayak and kind of get more comfortable in it. That's the biggest piece of advice that I can give anybody. And don't be afraid to ask dudes within the kayak community, hey, can I come, get in your boat sometime? Because they will let you. I mean, I'll let anybody, like, I tell my buddies all the time, they're looking at new kayaks and I'm like, well, come over, grab it, go take it to the lake. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, you're not going to hurt it. I mean, it's, it's really hard to hurt a plastic boat. And so, and even with my buddies, um, first time I ever paddled an RVR was with John Dalton. And, I was like, hey, man, I just want to get in that thing and fish in. And he's like, sure. And so, we switched kayaks midway through the day so that I could just experience it. But getting out there, getting in that kayak and just using it and being in is the biggest piece of advice I can give anybody that's wanting to get into kayak fishing. And then once you're in a kayak and you've kind of got your setup and you're comfortable, go out and test the limits of it. Like on a good hot summer day, put on your PFD or your life jacket and go out in the middle of the lake and stand up. See how far you can lean to one side before it flips. Walk to one side, down the other. Do all the little things in that kayak just as so that you know the limits of that kayak. I know the limits of my Hobie just like I know the limits of my Crescent, just like I know the limits of any kayak that I get into because I've spent enough time in it to know that, but you don't know that until you test it. You don't know how far you can lean until you've
Hmm.
leaned all the way until it flipped, and you don't want to do that when it's 40 degrees outside and all your tackles in your kayak with you. You want to do it on your own time, and on your own accord when it's 90 degrees outside. And when you flip in the water, it's just a nice dip in the water versus you losing all your crap and gasping for air. And so that's like the two biggest pieces of advice that I can give everybody is just, test a lot of kayaks. Because Chad Hoover told me one time, he said, your favorite kayak will be your second kayak. And
Mm.
it's like because most people buy affordably the first time and they buy just to get out on the water, and then they actually go buy the kayak that they're going to use for a long time. And the thing is you can buy the kayak you're going to use for a long time as affordably sometimes as you can buy really affordable kayaks. And so just test them, and take it to the limit and really learn that kayak.
Yeah, I guess the big stigma that I hear a lot is you have to have this $2,000 kayak to get started. I've found out from different people that that's not true. Some of the, like a Crescent, it's real like a Crescent ultralight. It's a good riverboat. Like it's affordable riverboat. You don't have to have all these fancy gadgets to get started.
Nope.
And I guess that's the big thing that people overlook. I think in kayak fishing, you have to have the biggest, baddest. It's nice, but some people can't afford that these days.
Mhm, no, and that's it, dude, you don't. I mean, and, like, there's so many good kayaks now that are so affordable. I mean, like you said, you look at a Crescent Ultralight or a Shoaly, an RVR, some of Old Town's kayaks, they're all within that sub $2,000 price range. They're ready to fish right out the box. You get a paddle, a PFD, and some rods and reels, and you can go have a great time and not have to have a ton of stuff with you. I mean, just the other day, me and John floated a river, and I was floating with literally I had a paddle, two rods, and a tackle bag with me, and that was it. And ended up catching 4 or 5 big spotted bass, and had a great time, and really probably caught some fish that nobody else will catch or could catch in that general area just because we were in an area only kayaks could get to. And really, it's not until you start getting up into like kayak tournament fishing and really like having to get out on bigger water, because that's like the thing with kayak tournament fishing that kind of annoys me, and because I can badmouth kayak fishing because I've been doing it long enough now that I think I got an opinion on it. But like, some of these kayak tournaments, they go to these big lakes like Gunnersville. Now there is an
Mhm.
ability for you to go and fish a certain style in a kayak on a Lake Gunnersville, just like you can anywhere else, else up a creek or something like that. But even on some of these national level tournaments, that's the one thing that hurt Hobie in the BOS was they started limiting people to the ramps that they could use. Well, then you limit
Mhm.
yourself to like, well, if the 10 ramps that they choose are all main lake, You got to be in a certain kind of kayak if the wind's blowing 15 miles an hour. You know, you got to have the motor, you got to have the pedal drive, you got to have these things. And really,
Mhm.
that took away the essence of what kayak fishing is all about, which is go somewhere that nobody else can go and put a boat in there that no one else can put in there because you've got that rig, you know, the way that Drew Gregory does it. And Drew's done a really good job with the Kayak Adventure series of bringing that essence of kayak fishing back. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I don't. I think people need to understand unless you're gonna go straight into like national level kayak tournaments, you can go and have a tremendous amount of fun and probably catch more and bigger fish than most people will all year long in a little paddle kayak with a couple rods and reels and a few baits.
Yeah, so speaking to the kayak series, how is that different than any other, say, like a bass boat? So I know the boat is different. Are the rules different? Like, can we kind of get some insight on what's different between like a bass boat tournament to a kayak tournament?
Yeah, yeah, so, I mean, the biggest difference is gonna be actually how you score that
Mhm.
event, right? A bass boat tournament, obviously, we're putting 5 fish in a live well, and you take them back to a weigh-in stage or a weigh-in place, and you weigh them in, and it's all by weight. Kayak tournaments are all by length, and it's all catch, photo, release, and so we have, designated boards that are approved by those kayak tournament series and different state level organizations that organize these kayak tournaments. Most of them are going to take the catch board or the new Yak Attack board. But that just gives you a standard across the board of which to measure to. And all of our tournaments are done by length. And so, kind of to put it into bass boat weigh in perspectives, is like, you know, a 20 incher is like catching a 5 pounder. You know what I mean? And so, if you got
Right.
20 inchers, you're doing pretty good. Like, you're going to be hard to beat, you know. And so,
Hmm.
like, you know, a good keeper size fish is 15 inches. And you know, it's just kind of like, you know, a regular boat tournament, except for that length really matters versus the weight mattering. That's like probably the biggest difference that most people are going to notice. The second difference is that kayak tournaments you can put in at any ramp on the lake that you're fishing, as long as it's a
Mm.
public ramp. So, you know, with most bass boat tournaments, you're putting it in a central place and you run from there. Well, obviously, we can't cover a great amount of distance, even if you do have a big, you know, motor setup and all that, and so oftentimes we get to choose where we put in, and which can is really cool because it makes, to me, it gives kayak fishing way more strategy because you got to be really strategic in, you know, are you going to put in and stay in an area all day long? Are you going to put in and motor or paddle to an area? Are you floating a creek? Are you going to have enough time to float a creek or a river? Are you going to, you know, be able to pull that boat out and run from one spot to the other very quickly? And so you got to get really strategic in doing that, which is really really cool. But outside of that, you know, I mean, there's really not that big a difference. You know, it's a competition. There's rules, just like in a normal boat tournament. You know, there's a check-in time. There's a time that you got to be back. You know, and all that kind of stuff. But realistically, you know, to me, the kayak tournament is just a little bit more fun because of that. And
Hmm.
then too, the kind of camaraderie around kayak fishing tournaments. You know, we always do a big check-in, normally have food, everybody's in there having a good time, and we always make it a little bit of a get together and a social event more than even just the check-in for the kayak tournament, which is really, really cool too. And so it's fun. It's a different pace, it's a different thing. You know, I often kind of compare it to chess and checkers. You know, chess
Hmm.
and checkers are played on the same exact board, but it's two completely different games. And that's kind of like what kayak tournament fishing versus bass boat, you know, tournament fishing is like.
Yeah, I've seen definitely like the camaraderie of between the kayak anglers. Um, Is one question I had is, do they add up all the links from your best 5, or is it like a cumulative link that you just add all your weights up at the
Yes,
end?
most of your tournaments are going to be the best 5 fish. You know, it's
Mhm.
your best 5 by length, and so it's the 5 longest fish that you got. But there are some tournaments. Native host one. It's called the Native Big Bass Bash, and so it's whoever catches the most length and then the biggest fish.
Mm.
And so it's kind of like MLF style. It's as many fish as you can possibly catch that are 12 inches or bigger. But you know, for the most part, it's going to be your best 5. And what's really cool is like, depending on what, you know, league you're fishing in or what series you're fishing in, like Drew with the Kayak Adventure Series, they do your best 5 over 2 days. And so you
Huh.
can fish on a Friday afternoon and catch 5 and then be able to upgrade those 5 fish the next day on Saturday,
Hmm.
which is cool. And so, you know, just the catch photo release allows you to do some really cool formats that you can't always do with a bass boat. And again, just gives it a little bit more of a strategy, something else to think about. And so it's really fun. It's really cool.
And the pictures have to be very clear. I have seen that a lot, that
Oh yeah.
you
Yeah,
have
there's
to
a
have clear
whole
pictures.
Yeah, there's a whole set of standards around taking pictures, and there's a lot of great video resources out there. People kind of going over how you do it, but most of your kayak leagues are going to make sure and go over the rules with people, especially new people, to make sure they're getting a good, clear picture. But you got to have a good, clear picture. You got to make sure you can see their mouth, see their tail. Make sure that
Mhm.
there's no hands under the gill plate, stuff like that, and then make sure that identifier's in there because that's really important. That's how we kind of certify and verify that it's happening. Those pictures are taken on the day that the tournament's going on and stuff like that. Make sure your location services are turned on your phone and stuff like that. So it's cool, man. I mean, there's so many safeguards against cheating within the kayak fishing world, but again, it's you against yourself in a lot of instances because you got to make sure that all your little ducks in a row when you get that bass in the boat and it's a 6 pounder 21 inches long and you're shaking all over. You got to make sure you get a good clear
Mhm.
picture and don't let it hop out of the kayak with you.
Yeah, I really wanna get started on it and just, I've fished I was like you, I fished out of a bass boat
Hmm.
pretty much my entire life. Owned a few, just with life happening, kids coming about, it's just not feasible anymore.
Oh yeah,
But, I still need to get out there and test my skills, and the kayak way is just as good as any other way.
absolutely,
And you can get a lot more places with a kayak that you can a bass boat.
absolutely.
Um, and no really gas prices on anything.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
minimal breakage, and if
yeah,
it is break, you can fix it easily.
pretty
Um,
much. Yeah,
but let's jump back into your YouTube channel.
yeah.
What do you have for the future for your channel followers and subscribers?
Yeah, man, we got some really cool stuff coming down the pipe this year. Got some really cool trips planned that I'm excited about. We'll be heading up to New York and we're heading to Michigan. We got a trip down to Georgia planned. Gonna go, chase some big northern fish, go chase some more shoal bass. Obviously doing stuff around here in East Tennessee. Just got done filming. I got 5 videos that I edited just today over the
Mm,
past like week and a half. You're right here near me, so it's March. Fish is
mhm,
turning on, the fish are starting to bite. Been doing some trout fishing, gonna start adding in a little bit of crappie fishing. Just doing some different stuff, man. I always tell people it's Alex Rudd fishing, not Alex Rudd bass fishing. And so I want to try new things, do fun things. And obviously I always go back to you always dance with who brought you to the ball, right? And bass fishing brought
mhm.
me to the ball. But man, just experimenting and playing with different stuff is fun to me. And so this is gonna be a fun year. And so people can really look forward to just a bunch of really cool new styles of content, going to places I've visited before, but it's different every single time we go there. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
that's big. And then bass fishing tips too. So I've started a brand new YouTube channel. It's called Bass Fishing Tips. A lot of people probably haven't seen it yet. I think we just crossed over 3,000 subscribers on that channel, but that is my educational channel. It's solely dedicated to sitting down and telling you guys and teaching you guys about bass fishing and how I like to do it and kind of talking through some of my experiences and my, kind of tips that I have about bass fishing. And so that's like the two big things, the new things that are happening in my YouTube world.
I'm, like, super excited. I haven't really saw your tips and tricks videos yet, so I have to jump on that.
Yeah, yeah, everybody
But
can check it out. It's just bass fishing tips is what you look up or and it should pop up. You'll see my ugly mug on there. It's a brand new channel. We're getting it grown, but I'm really excited about it.
yeah, I kinda it was kinda weird how I stumbled upon your YouTube because I was kinda, like, searching, like 'cause I think I was fishing in East Tennessee or something, Douglas, actually,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Wonder, like, I'm just gonna search Douglas," and you came up and I was like, but had nothing to do with Douglas, and I got hooked because I was like, just the way you film is just eye-catching. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just mesmerizing to me.
I appreciate it,
Um,
buddy. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
and I was like, I'm gonna subscribe to him. He's got some cool stuff coming.
Yeah.
Then you got your first or like your dream boat, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then the kayak came. You wanna kind of talk about your new kayak setup?
Yeah, no, yeah, so we just got the new kayak setup. It's pretty badass this year. The dugout did an excellent job rigging it, and that's really the big thing is how that thing's rigged. Our ability to rig kayaks now is incredible. Like with all the new motors and lights and LEDs and electronics and batteries and just everything that we're able to do. You can rig a kayak insane. But yeah, I got the Hobie 360 again. And so it's a really cool boat, very, very expensive high-end boat, obviously, but really blessed to have that boat and be able to fish out of it. And then we got the motor set up on the back. We're running that NK 300, which is a 3 horsepower equivalent motor on the back of a kayak, which is insane because it can push that kayak about 6.5 miles an hour, which is nuts.
Pretty
And
fast down the river.
oh yeah, and then obviously the biggest and probably silliest thing this year that we did was the 12-inch Humminbird Explorer with the Mega Live,
I
and so
respect it though. I mean, I
oh
respect it
yeah,
because the way the electronic game's going, you kind of have to at this point.
oh
I
yeah, yeah,
mean,
and it's something, man. A lot of people don't like it, and I
mhm,
definitely get it, and if you can't afford it, I 100% understand kinda why people are against it, and obviously, like, bass fishing tips, and what I talk about bass fishing tips is all just, like, traditional old school bass fishing, and that's kinda what Alex for Fishing is too, because I'm not good with the live technology yet, I'm just not, I can admit that, but I wanna learn, you know what I mean? And so I'm always gonna go
mhm,
back to my roots, I'm always gonna be a bank beating, just knuckle dragging, Bigfoot out there, throwing my crankbait, my buzz bait, and flipping and doing my thing. But I think learning that technology is important as a bass angler, but I think it's just also important for me because I got to challenge myself and I got to learn. I love to learn new things and I love to go out there and be like, I really suck with this, but I'm going to figure out how to use it and do it well. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I'm
yeah,
looking forward to kind of applying that on the kayak and applying that on the boat and learning that technology. But yeah, the new kayak setup's really, really cool. And what's really cool about kayaks is like, I will get some new kayaks this year. You know what I mean? Like they're affordable, they're easy to get, they're accessible, and so I'm always looking. I already got some stuff planned for some kayaks that I want to get and just get in them and play around with them and do new things. And so it's really really cool.
yeah. I agree with the technology thing. I'm 100% bank beater. Like that's how I grew up, throwing a crankbait, square bill,
Hmm.
killing the bank. That's
Hmm.
why this time of year I'm like getting excited because it's pre-spawn time. We're
Yep.
about time to go, especially
Yep.
up here at Smith Mountain Lake. They're getting close.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, the kayak. If you haven't seen his video with the new kayak, definitely go look at it. The pulley system was the thing that was like amazed me to pull the motor up. I was
Oh
like,
yeah. It's cool, ain't it?
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy, man. I'm telling you, the way we can rig kayaks now is insane. Like people don't get it until they see a tricked out kayak, and then they're like, "Holy cow! Who knew you could do all that?" And the thing is like you don't have to have again what we were talking about, the most expensive kayak. You can take
Mhm.
a $1,500 boat and slap $1,000 motor on the back and be in it 2 grand, 2,500 bucks, and like trick it out with all that stuff because like the pulleys and all it's not that expensive. It's just some rope and some handles. And it's just like
Yeah.
the coolest thing, and like even Dugout makes that new steering triangle. I actually just did a little video about it. And it's like it's only a $79 part, and like
Mm.
in the grand scheme of kayak fishing and in the grand scheme of fishing, and especially in a bass boat, there ain't a $79 piece on a bass boat. Maybe the gas
No,
tank when you have to fill it up. But other
not
than
even that.
yeah, and so I mean, dude, it's crazy, man. And so it's just cool, dude. I love the whole rigging of the kayak things is really just amazed me, and to be able to see how they can rig a kayak, and so it's really cool.
Yeah, I was impressed by the lights too. I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
yeah, it's
Um,
cool, man.
but as we're kind of wrapping things up,
Mhm.
where can our listeners, our viewers find you?
Yeah. No, so it's Alex Rudd Fishing for everything. So Alex Rudd, it's RUDD Fishing. It'll be an orange logo with my face on it. It's hard to miss. But you go on YouTube, TikTok. The podcast is Alex Rudd Fishing Podcast. Instagram, Facebook, anywhere you look for any of that stuff, I'm there, and I'm creating content on all those platforms and bringing some really cool stuff to hopefully everybody that everybody enjoys. And then again, Bass Fishing Tips is the new YouTube channel. Just type in bass fishing tips, and there's going to be quite a few things that pop up because that's a very popular search term on YouTube. But if you
Mhm.
search down through there, you'll see the channel named Bass Fishing Tips, and that's my channel. But that's the two main places to find me and to go and kind of consume everything that I'm putting out into the world.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely share your links and stuff when we post this. It goes up Friday morning,
Nice.
so everybody just keep holding on. I really hope to have you back on very soon. Hopefully,
So
we can. maybe hook up for a kayak tournament or something. I don't
There you
know.
go, man. Hey, I'm
I
down for
go,
it. You're not very far, man. You just hop, skip, and a jump. You can drive down here and hop in one of our kayak tournaments. Maybe we have up on Cherokee or Douglas, and see. We
yeah,
got one coming up in the summer. I think I'll be here for it, and so we'll have a Douglas Lake tournament. Maybe you can get you a kayak and come hop in it.
I hate Douglas. Don't I hope no Tennesseans are listening, but man, Douglas is rough in the summer.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
she's rough. You just got to know where to go find them.
oh well, in the wintertime they drain it down, so
It
there's
gets
really
in.
nothing.
Yeah,
But no, I appreciate you coming on short notice. And
absolutely.
it's pretty late, but I'm glad you were able to make it happen.
Yeah, buddy. Absolutely. No, man, I appreciate it. It's a great show and a fun time. I like the short get to it format because that's not what the Alex Riff Fishing podcast is. It's normally 52 rabbit holes and discussion. We'll start on bass fishing and end on Bigfoot. And so, look, I do it on every podcast. We started on bass fishing, and now, see, I've ended by saying Bigfoot. So here we are. I finally did it.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you again. And guys, go follow Alex. Great content. And till the next one, guys, tight lines. Have a great night.
Appreciate you, Calvin. Have a good night, buddy.